Extension Professor and Entomologist for the Vegetable Integrated Pest Management, IPM program at Auburn University, Alabama. He's also the State Coordinator for the Sustainable Agriculture Research and Education, SARE, and the Alabama Beginning Farmers Program. Those are southernsare.org and alabamabeginningfarmer.com. Both have been funded by numerous national, state, commodity, and industry grants. He's secured over $8 million in funding through grants and industry funds for IPM programs since 2008. Dr. Majumdar has published over 20 refereed papers, 30 scientific abstracts, and over 250 extension articles and slide charts over his career. Total circulation for extension publications exceed 87,000 copies, along with 12,000 digital media views for the Alabama Beginning Farmer website, Farming Basic online course and phone app, the IPM newsletter, social networks, educational videos and webinars, and most importantly, all digital media resources are available free for everyone throughout the world to enjoy. So without further ado, Dr. Majumdar.
All right, thank you so much, Tyler, for introducing Dr. A. A little bit of housekeeping here before the presentation gets going. You might notice you see a little red dot on your screen that says that this webinar is being recorded. So we are recording the program today. Should you lose your connection at any point or just need to leave us early, we'll be sharing that after the program concludes, and you'll be able to come back and view it later from our YouTube page. So, or if you just enjoy it so much you want to watch it again, you'll be able to do that later. Also, if you have questions as we go, please drop those into the Q&A feature on the webinar. We also have a chat box, but if you drop it in the chat, it will only come to the panelists. So if you have something that you would just like myself, Dr. A, or Tyler to view, you can drop it in that chat. But if you have a question that the whole group might benefit from, I'd encourage you to use the Q&A feature instead. That way everyone can see the question that's been asked and they can see the answer if it's typed in there. And if there's a quick question that I can address that as we move along, I'll do so. If it's something that Dr. A needs to address, we're going to hold that to the end of his presentation today, and then he'll come back and answer questions at the end of the program. So please stick around for that after. All right, handing it off to you, Dr. A. Thank you.
All right, can you hear me? All right, can you see my slides? Perfect. All right, welcome everyone. Thank you, Hannah, Brooke, and Tyler for organizing this, and I'm really glad to be here, and glad to be at the beautiful botanical garden. So it's great to be outside and doing this. So let me know if you don't see my slide or anything. Just interrupt and I'll try to fix it. But yeah, we have lots of good digital resources, especially after the pandemic last year. We learned a lot of things and turned everything to a digital platform. We still print a lot of these publications. So just let me know by my email. My email is easier than my name, so you shouldn't be able to, have any problem remembering that. And then of course, our main website is alabamabeginningfarmer.com. And my main Facebook page that is linked to the Farming Basics app is Alabama Extension Commercial Horticulture. So please join us there. Let's see if I can go to the next. Okay, is the slides moving? Okay, good. So just to start with, we have a series of videos, IPM videos on our YouTube channel, which is also accessible through the Farming Basics app. That Farming Basics app connects you to all social media resources and a vast library of other things that we have. But these are some of the videos you can watch. These are 2 to 3 minute videos that you can watch on your own time. And a lot of little details are in these videos that I will also discuss today. To begin with, I am also an avid gardener. I love gardening, especially last year. Being at home so much, end up gardening a lot. And I really like growing exotic vegetables. And a lot of these seeds I buy online, but you're looking at the the trellis I built, me and my kids, we built this in our backyard to grow different types of gourd, and I had a lot of fun with these crops. I'm trying to move this bar here. That is so annoying. That's a zoom bar. All right, there. Maybe this will stay out of my way. So anyway, you can see different types of trellis, and I'm mentioning this because one of the things I realized with these gardening projects, I've realized over time that your critical thing is to, when are you planting, what varieties you are growing. Planning your irrigation system is very important because that has an effect on how you're going to control your insects later. For example, if you do overhead irrigation, which I personally don't like, I don't like to spray the entire vegetables with water because that just washes away insecticides, be it organic or conventional. So you have to kind of think on some of these aspects. And then, of course, trellising, as I mentioned, I really try to have a good trellis. The whole idea is to open up the canopy so that the insects don't hide. Remember, insects, they're very shy creatures, and they will hide in the heat and the humid pockets. If you have a dense crop, like in the picture here, if this was just laying on the ground. So I like things to be off the ground, and the gourds really do well when you have them hanging. And you can see the different varieties and crops I grew last year. And it was a lot of fun. And because you all are gardeners, I'm going to share this. So 10 years back, and then last year, you can see it was pretty intense. And I keep good records. That's another thing as gardener and farmers. Please maintain good records so that you know what works and what doesn't work. But it's really amazing what you can do in small plots, or small pots, and on small acres. And last year was an amazing year. So I learned a lot growing these Indian ridge gourd, pumpkin, bottle gourd. I also got a lot of these Malabar spinach, absolutely lovely crop. And then, of course, the standard tomatoes and cucumbers. I did grow an Indian cucumber last year, which was really outstanding. The funny part is, even with these exotic vegetables, a lot of the insect issues were still the same that I'm familiar with. So the insects just adapt. And that's the point I'm trying to make here. But if you need any information about these, just reach back to me afterwards, and I'll help you out with variety selection and whatnot. So just to kind of give an overview of squash or cucurbit and tomato insects, there are so many. So I tried to condense into as few slides as I can. So here's my attempt. So bear with me. There's a lot of information on these slides, but I'll start out with some of the most common ones, and one of the first insect I see on our cucurbits are these cucumber beetles. And there are different species. There is the striped cucumber beetle. You can see the picture on the top left of your screen, I think, is the striped cucumber beetle along with the spotted cucumber beetle. And they cause this kind of leaf feeding or leaf shattering. And it's very, very common. You'll see that on the transplants or if you're growing from seed, very early season. They're different from flea beetle damage. Flea beetles cause small circular holes. These guys will eat up larger sections. I think it's called staircase or ladder type feeding. Anyway, but they will aggregate on the weeds. If you're not doing weed control around your field, they'll first feed on weeds and then they will move on to crops. So weed control is very important. And these insects, oftentimes they'll move around if you walk or scout your fields. They will fly ahead of you and they'll quickly settle and keep feeding. They also like the flowers where they will feed on the pollen. So they may affect some of the fertilization issues or fruit setting. And then if you have a late outbreak of cucumber beetles, then you can see the fruits being affected as well, which are in these pictures. And especially the striped cucumber beetle has become really problematic for a lot of farmers. Again, I don't expect you to read all of this. I do have these. I've already emailed these slides to Hannah, so they can send it out. But And this is also part of a blog article that I have made a list of. But there are these different species. The most common ones are the striped and the spotted. There are slight differences between them in terms of their life cycles. But not only that they cause direct feeding loss, but they also transmit diseases, and that's really a problem. So these will vector bacterial wilt, different species of wilt, and depending on how small your plants are, it can be fatal to the plants. So again, watch out for these insects. These are very, very common insects, and they're probably active on the weeds right now, and they're going to move on to crops pretty soon. Here's another group of insects that I get a lot of questions about. And again, I apologize. I tried to squish as much information as I could onto these slides, but you're looking at 3 different insects on one slide. And funny thing is that their damage or their caterpillars look similar, and sometimes it can throw you off when you're scouting outside. So for example, we have the pickle worm, and then in the middle is the squash vine borer. I think a lot of gardeners are familiar with that. And then you have the melon worm. Again, there are slight differences in the adults. So you'll see the picture of the moth on the top. Interesting thing about squash vine borer moth that it's a day flying moth. So it flies during daytime. It behaves like a wasp more than less and not like a moth. It behaves like a wasp, the females move very fast. And a lot of times gardeners and even producers will think it's a wasp, but it's really the female trying to lay eggs at the base of the plant. And that's different from pickle worms and some of the other, like the melon worms, which lay eggs more on the upper parts of the plants. And then the larva will bore into the stem or even the fruits. So you can see here on the picture, if you look at the pickle worm picture, that pickle worm larva, and they're spotted, they have those dots on their body when they're young. That's actually on my Indian cucumber. So they found my backyard, even in the urban jungle where I live. These insects are extremely good at flying and scattering. And many of them are migratory. Some of them they just build up. For example, vine borers, they will build up over the years. You may not get a bad infestation the first year or 2 years, but the 3rd year, suddenly you have vine borers everywhere. So again, these insects are fairly easy to scout. You will see the stem, the plants dying or kind of withering away, very weak plants. You may also see excreta coming out or feces coming out of the feeding holes. The melon worms are interesting that they may feed together on leaves and on the fruits, and you may see some webbing. That web protects the caterpillars. So again, by putting these insects side by side, you kind of see the differences. And again, some of this you can keep handy, print it, hang it up on in your garden, in your office or somewhere, so you can reach out to these slides. There are many species of armyworms that are just getting out there, and you may start seeing these on your crops, and especially the early instars. Armyworms, which is on the top, you can see beta armyworm, fall armyworm, yellow striped armyworm, and southern armyworm. Oops, I think it's auto advanced. But these armyworms, they sort of come in July, August, after spending a few generations on grasses. They really love grass and cereal crops, and then they will move on to our vegetables. So again, they are very unique looking caterpillars. You have to kind of learn to identify them. They are hard to identify when they're young. Remember, your smartphone has a good camera. Take a good picture and send it out to Tyler or any of the commercial horticulture REAs that you can find through the phone app, and we'll get that identified. And the older the caterpillar, the easier they're to identify. And then at the bottom, you will see the insects that are like corn earworm, tomato hornworm. I think hornworms, I think everybody knows those insects. They're one of the largest caterpillars and moths you can find in the insect world here in North America. And then cabbage loopers and soybean loopers. The loopers are again kind of late season pests. But all of these insects, they typically go through 3, 4, 5 generations. So you really get an outbreak in the middle. So if you're pushing your planting date too much and you're trying to plant in the hot summer, you can expect these caterpillars to jump onto that crop. And that's what happens is the later plantings get hammered with insects. So you have to be timely to control them. And these are what the eggs look like. I put this up because I get a lot of questions and text messages on these masses of eggs. What are these? Very likely, sometimes I have to read them out if I have a sample. But very likely, if you see these masses, egg masses with hairs sticking on it, very likely it's an armyworm moth. They lay eggs in these masses, and then the female brushes off her abdominal hair onto these eggs as a protection to hide them from predators. But if you look at the corn earworm, hornworms, and loopers, they lay eggs singly. So very unique behavior and very unique ways that these insects are, infest crops. And you'll see these, if you're scouting, look for these on the tender top leaves. They typically don't prefer the hard bottom leaves. You'll see them in the tender parts of the plants, and the female especially is good at looking at insect. They're very good at finding stressed out plants. So again, I mentioned irrigation. It's very important to reduce stress. Anything you can do to reduce stress on the plants makes it less susceptible to these insects. So that's a very, very general statement and very good one, actually. Here's another one that you'll see on tomatoes. So kind of moving from some of the cucurbit type crops to more of the solanaceous crops. And this is the one that you'll see very early on sometimes, the western flower thrips. There are different species of thrips, actually. This is just one of them. And this one is a very efficient vector of the tomato spotted wilt virus. And that's a really dangerous virus. There is no antivirus. Once you have this in the plant, you got to take that plant out. So again, when you're looking for these insects, these thrips, they're good at hiding on the transplants. They're good at hiding in the flowers. So what I do as a gardener, or even in my research plots, I would take the flowers and put them in like sandwich bags, little tiny sandwich bags, and shake them, and you'll see these thrips fall off. And then you can do the counting to see how bad they are. But the virus can really hit hard on the crop. And one of the best strategy is to start out with resistant varieties. Especially if you're trying to be organic, you can find some very good hybrid tomatoes that you can grow and reduce your insecticide usage. Thrips are extremely difficult to control with a lot of the insecticides, especially in the gardens. Here are the aphids. So after these thrips, aphids are the next big insect group that you will see on plants. In fact, you may start seeing them on even older transplants. If you're buying your transplants from big box stores, and you're buying these older transplants that are on clearance, sometimes the insecticide wear off, and then you carry back these aphids from the store to your home. So make sure you check the bottom of the leaves. Aphids don't typically stay on the top of the leaves. You will find them aggregating on the bottom of the leaves. There are the winged versions, so these don't have wings, but the ones that have wings, those are migratory aphids, and that indicates that the aphid is looking for food. Once they find the food and the right host plants, they will shed the wings, and they will start reproducing. And remember, aphids are about 2 millimeters long. They have these cornicles at the back. They look like tailpipes on a motorcycle. They are cloning machines. These are daughters, and they will bear more daughters. And within a week, you can have an explosion of aphids. And they have over 600, I think, host plants. So it's remarkable how aphids, how fast they can take over from ornamentals. They will move to vegetables and back, and fruit crops. Now also be aware that there are beneficial wasps that will infest these aphids. So be on the watch out for those aphid mummies. They look like puffed up aphids, and those are essentially dead aphids, but they have wasps. Don't destroy them. Those, if you see these aphid mummies, that's a good sign. All right, so that was a very quick rundown of some of the common insects. There are some really unusual ones out there as well that you will see, like loopers that I have not discussed, which could be late season outbreak. But a lot of these other pests and even mites which are not insects, you'll see those on kind of late season. And if you use too much pesticide, which is what happens on a lot of farms, when they misuse pesticides, you may see spider mites. So I have left out some of those unusual insects. One thing to remember is when you're scouting, make sure you're keeping records and scout in the same or in a consistent manner. That's very important. And always carry with you like a hand lens or a magnifying glass, because a lot of these insects are small. So, oh, the other tip is use your phone. How about that, bro? Using your phone. Remember, your phone can magnify. So I have identified aphids from those pictures. So take good pictures, use your phone as a magnifier. Even that works. So just a gardening tip. All right, so I'm kind of moving from the scouting part to more of the management part, which I think this will be of interest to you all. So again, I always remind gardeners and producers about integrated pest management, which is basically, or IPM, which is basically a threshold-based management system or decision management system, where you're really trying to integrate different tactics. So IPM does not mean going for the insecticide. It means using many different ways of control, and you'll see some of those today. Unfortunately, what happens is we misidentify insects. We went on a vacation and come back and find out insects are now eating our crops. That leads to panic, and that leads to more insecticide use. So it's just the cycle of events that happens. And we do have these issues in Alabama, which is because we are misusing insecticides, for example, resistance, resurgence, and loss of natural enemies. So we may wipe out beneficial insects in our attempt. So I just wanted to show you this cartoon on the left that you see. It's of Copy curculio, which is one of these insects that you cannot kill with any chemical. It's remarkable how this insect walks away from pesticides. And so here the Copy curculio is sitting on a bar, and the bartender has given it every insecticide and still cannot get it. So it's kind of an interesting scenario, and these are the things we are dealing with in Alabama. So this is not distant future. This is actually happening right now. And I don't want this to happen to our producers or gardeners. So be very judicious with your use of multiple tactics. And when I teach gardening classes or even organic farming, this is the typical flow of thought that or some of the steps I want everybody to think about is there are 3 levels of pest management or IPM. The first one is the systems-based practices, which is what you saw in my early slides, like all your production practices. Starting out with clean fields, cleaning up your garden after the production is done so that insects don't hang out there. Rotation of crops, very important. And then trap cropping, which I'm not going to discuss today because that's more for, takes up a lot of space and it's good for small farms. But these are some of the first level of IPM. The second level is pest exclusion, which I think is very appropriate for gardening, small scale farming, even urban farms. And that can be done very effectively. Although there is a learning curve there, I have made my own set of mistakes. And then of course you have the third level of control, which when everything else fails, you have insecticides, conventional or biorational. Remember, even organic insecticides can hurt beneficial insects and pollinators. So just be careful. Having something labeled organic doesn't mean that it's not going to harm. So an insecticide is an insecticide. It's going to have an effect somewhere. So just remember that and try to protect natural enemies. So let's go into some of these in more details. So, before I go into that, I'll remind you, the first step is, of course, scouting. We also do insect monitoring using traps. And in fact, this afternoon, I'm going to set up some traps on a farm here. And one thing we have understood from these mass trapping research across 15, 20 locations every year is how insects take benefit of drought. And remember, we are cycling between these drought and wet years. I don't know what we're going to experience this year, but 2019, we experienced a flash drought. And that flash drought means suddenly the rain stopped for a month. And that is really devastating and stressful for the crop. It also increases or favors insects, and they take advantage. And you can see those red arrows on the right-hand side. Exactly when the rain stopped, the insect activity peaked. So it's really remarkable to see that and those from the numbers. So again, be on the lookout and manage your water really well, reduce stress on the plants, and think about how you're doing garden and prepare well. So let's talk about the pest exclusion systems, and especially the idea behind this is pest prevention. I always tell my clients that pest prevention is better than cure, and that's really important. But the idea is simple behind this pest exclusion is to separate the insect from the host plant. And you can do it for short term or you can do it for the long term. But the beauty is in the design. So the material, you have to know the material and you have to design a system that works for you. Okay. So again, there's a little bit of management steps here that you need. And there are really two types of exclusion system. I have a paper on the Southern SARE website, the Sustainable Ag Research and Education website, defining these different types of exclusion systems. So there is the temporary exclusion system, which is very suitable for small farms and gardens. I use it. And then you have the permanent exclusion system, which is more expensive and suitable for large structures like greenhouses and high tunnels. So let's talk about these in a little bit more details. And again, I'm going to show you a lot more pictures than data, so that will keep it interesting. All right. So again, this is the basics of the temporary pest exclusion system. And what you're looking at in pictures are different structures we have built. Some of these structures are fixed in the ground. Some are movable. So again, those are the two different types of, and you will see some really interesting gardening videos on YouTube I've seen where they have these movable frames on hinges. So you can just unhinge and kind of take it apart and put it back together. It's really interesting how people have done it. So there's lots of design elements or design ideas out there. But again, the idea is this is very good for small scale farming, market gardens. Make sure that in pest exclusion system, make sure that the sides seal well. It's important to tuck those sides after you use the correct fabric and seal it well. If you leave it flapping in the air, it doesn't work because insects are going to get into that structure. So again, pest exclusion system, this type works really well early in the season. I recommend it highly, recommend it for early season, right after transplanting. You can see one of those middle pictures, the little tomato transplants covered with the chicken wire and then the Superlight insect barrier. And that's one of the fabric that we have researched. There are several we have researched actually. The most expensive one is the Protect Net, which is what farmers are using because there's a lot more crop at stake. But as gardeners, that Superlight insect barrier, it's actually lighter than row cover. So if, in case you're wondering about these look like row cover for frost protection, these are actually lighter materials and they're more breathable. So they won't jack up the heat and humidity inside that fabric. That's why they're very, very thin fabric. So, and they're different from the other materials out there. So, but really cost effective. That Superlight insect barrier is easily available. It comes in a big pack, can come in a small vacuumed package. It's easy for the mail to deliver it. Protect Net is much bigger. You almost need a forklift to lift it up. It's so heavy. Just to show you a little bit of data, not to overwhelm you, but this is one of our older research, and you can see how we kind of got started almost 5-6 years back. Oh no, 7 years back now. So it's been a while. We have been dabbling in pest exclusion systems, and now we are doing it with farmers and doing field demonstrations. But what I wanted to show you here is the Superlight insect barrier was as good as one of the organic premix insecticides like Azera. So really it helps to control, put these fabric early in the season, and that deters the aphids. It deters a lot of the early season caterpillars. It's really, once you start seeing and using it, you may not go back to an open system. I'm using it religiously. I actually grow my entire brassica crops, so cool season crops, undercover. I call it undercover. So it's really remarkable what these structures can do and what this fabric, they're very effective and give you very good control. This is actually on a more kind of commercial research scale, where again, your aphid counts were dramatically reduced by having a fabric. I thought I had a picture, but I don't. But here's some examples just to show you what the crops look like. So here's a Superlight, again, experiment Superlight insect barrier and AgroFabric Pro. I used, just a raised bed, very simple raised bed demonstration. And the pictures on the left and the right, those are the one on the left is open crop, and the picture on the left, you can see the fabric on the background. You can see the difference in the crop. The flea beetles and grasshoppers have eaten up the open crop, whereas the crop that is protected from the very beginning with Superlight insect barrier looks much happier. So again, you get a major reduction in stress by these exclusion systems. Here's another one with eggplants. So another solanaceous crop. And here we notice the wonderful growth of these eggplants that are covered with the white fabric, and then the ones without. So the ones without, this was actually a Master Gardener project, pretty intense Master Gardener project, where the open crop is so leggy and we had all kinds of insect problems. But the ones on the left, you can see the crop is shorter, it's already blooming, really different. And these are same day pictures. I left the picture dates on there still. So really difference, you will see these differences as you learn more and do this. Here's a more recent study with cowpeas or southern peas. So if you're trying to grow peas and you have these grasshopper problems like you see in the picture here, pest exclusion system really does well. Now this is a protect net. With a lot of these, one of the things you will learn is if you have, in case you have an aphid infestation or say a thrips infestation early in the season before you covered them, and now you're putting the fabric on, you may exclude natural enemies. Now, one of the things we are testing and we have seen really good results is introducing beneficial insects under these structures, especially when we're doing this on farm. The beneficial insects, they will feed under the fabric and they will go after these aphids and small insects that may be accidentally introduced. So that's another idea to share with you. And here is squash being grown under protect net. So again, a lot of wonderful kind of experiences we have gained trying to do this research. It does, the challenge sometimes we face is weather again. When you have straight line winds or storms, you have to keep a watch on these fabric. They may tear very easily. So you have to go repair. So there's a little bit of that management aspect with these structures. But on a small scale, these can be done, and gardeners and farmers have done it. I'm doing it. Here's a little demonstration that Alison Chabelle, who is REA in UREA in North Alabama, she did at one of the church demonstration locations with a raised bed. And you can see they grew an entire batch of cool season crops in Superlight insect barrier. So the one thing you need to learn from this is not to grow the crops where it starts to touch the fabric, because if that happens, then insects can still penetrate their mouth parts through that fabric. So you got to have that separation. So don't let the plants grow too big or modify the structure. So you need that airspace. You need some airspace in between. So that really helps. Again, as I was mentioning, I don't like the crop to be touching the fabric. Lift up the make your own hoops and lift the fabric off the crop so that insects don't feed through the crop, through the fabric. This is tomatoes. Now, one of the things we realized last year was you're looking at Bellarosa. Bellarosa is a great variety because it's a short tomato variety. It's virus resistant, and it produces abundantly even under the fabric without making a very tall structure. So I really enjoyed growing Bellarosa almost entirely inside these tunnels, but you need to open them up for some air movement so your fruit setting is better. So that's why I don't recommend this kind of pest exclusion late into the season. There's a point of where you can take it off safely and you'll still be okay. As I said, that this kind of pest exclusion opens the door for using beneficial insects, and you can release beneficial insects inside. One of my favorite is lacewing larvae. They are very, very ferocious predators, and I love using them in my research plots. So again, just giving you some ideas. And this past fall, I started to look at some of the products that are sold on Amazon and different websites. These are not necessarily insect exclusion materials, but they are labeled for frost protection or heat and wind protection. So they're sold on a different purposes, and I just wanted to try. So you're looking at some of my, because I couldn't do this on a farm with a COVID shutdown. I decided to do some of the work in my own backyard and some of in the crops garden at Auburn University. So you're going to see some of the slides of my local research here. But again, make sure you put your drip irrigation or some irrigation system before you start using it. It's very important to plan that ahead. And what I found out was with these fleece grow tunnels, it actually moderates the temperatures, especially prevents the freezing and then the loss from direct wind and rain. We had so much rain. My crops look pathetic in the pots, but the ones that were under the fabric looked fabulous. So again, you can get multiple benefits from exclusion material. And that's the point I'm trying to make. So these are really helpful and really good for like cool season crops in Alabama. Here's another one where I compared a grow sun, almost like a greenhouse. So I kind of made a mini greenhouse for myself with the plastic on top and comparing it with the fleece. And you're looking at the thermometers I had that measured temperatures continuously. And that's how I generated the data. So I measured them in the peak of our cold weather. And you can see how the plastic tunnel had higher temperatures, almost 15, 20 degrees higher temperature compared to the fleece tunnel. So again, on a cold day, this can protect your crop. So the problem is the plastic tunnel excludes rain. So you got to think about the irrigation, and I was using an irrigation system. So I was not worried about rain exclusion, but think about those things. And this is just to show you the graph. So I collected, I think, 3 data points every day for 15, 20 days. And really remarkable to see the plastic covering, how it was moderating the temperatures and was preventing freeze when I need it. So really the crops looked very good. And there were very few insects. I think I had grasshopper problem and I fixed it by 1 spray of insecticide, but that's it. It was very, very good experience, and I'm still doing it. And now we are testing some of these. The crops garden, our friend Hunter McBrayer from Farmers Federation set up this demonstration for a class. And so we are comparing different structures, like the pop-up greenhouses they're selling. They're kind of pricey on Amazon, but then those other 2 are fairly cheap. And you saw some of the slides. But I again recommend you to close the sides and the ends. Don't let it flap in the wind, because then it's pointless. Insects will get in. Quickly, how are we doing on time? So how long do I have? 90 minutes. Okay. All right. So I'm going to finish out with some bioinsecticides. And again, this is your last option. Remember, this is not your first option. one thing I do want to mention is that little sprayer you see on the top. If you can see it, it's a little sprayer. I'm trying some of these battery operated sprayers that I've bought. I've bought a batch of them from Amazon, and it's really interesting. I've learned quite a bit from these battery operated, because I feel like one of our problems is we buy our cheap insecticide. I mean, we buy expensive insecticide, but we buy cheap equipment, and that doesn't work. So I'm testing these battery operated sprayers, and I'm surprised they're very good quality, much better quality than some of the cheaper, and they're much lighter. I have a bad back, so I don't want to carry a backpack sprayer with 10 gallons of water behind me. So these are much easier, 1 to 2 gallon tank, perfect for small farms or even small and gardens. So I've tried these, and I have some more ideas on this, and I can do another class on these sprayers, but I just wanted to mention that. So if you go out to buy these alternative insecticides or organic insecticides, I think a lot of gardeners don't prefer to buy straight chemicals, and they're harder to find. Actually, you will see a small selection over in Lowe's or Home Depot. I think Walmart has almost stopped selling pesticides. So they're getting harder to buy, but these organic insecticides you can buy from websites. It's really easy. So that's why I had this slide to just kind of show you the different classes of organic insecticides. And again, remember, an insecticide is an insecticide. It is a poison. It's going to do something somewhere. So please be judicious with these products. So you have the physical poisons on the top, like kaolin clay, diatomaceous earth. Again, these products are great products, but they last very short. If it rains, this thing just goes down in your feet. So you got to reapply the clay. So they don't last very long, but they work by either abrasion, they kind of abrase the insect, or they confuse the insects. A majority of the products today that you see on the shelves at the co-ops and garden stores are the contact action insecticides. And those include your oils, neem. I think a lot of gardeners like neem, insecticide soap. Now that soap is different from Dawn detergent. A lot of people ask me that can I use Dawn detergent? Of course, you shouldn't use Dawn detergent because it's not labeled as an insecticide, technically. But if you are using Dawn detergent, the danger is if you add too much of it, it will burn the plants. If you have not seen it, if you've seen any purpling after you sprayed Dawn detergent, that's because you applied too much of Dawn detergent. So this soap, insecticide soap, is a potassium salt that will not burn your plants. Now with these oils and soaps, I'll remind you of the drought situation. If we are in a drought situation, don't spray these in the middle of the day when it's hot and dry. You will see plant burn. So just be careful. Spray. We do our sprays in the evening hours when the bees have left, and when the spray solution has time to dry out. So we don't do any more of the early morning sprays because of the dew, and the moisture, and that exposes pollinators to insecticides. So we do most of our sprays in the evening hours when it's cooler, and you won't have the plant burn. But the big majority of insecticides are the contact poisons, and there are even microbials included in the contact action. The very common insecticide you will recognize is BT or dipel. I think it's called thuricide for home gardeners. There's also a premix product now, but that's a very common, BTs are the largest selling bioinsecticide in the world. And these have to be eaten by the insect to act. So remember that. It's actually a stomach poison. And the one who I use in my research plots is Zentari. And you can see the packet, picture of a packet on the left. That Zentari is very effective against armyworms. That's why I like Zentari. Has a little bit broader mode of action there. But dipel is pretty good also, as long as you don't have any resistant populations of caterpillars. But these products are great, and you can also tank mix with other insecticides. You can also rotate with different insecticides. So BT gives you that flexibility. Really good product. Now remember, BT is a living insecticide, so don't treat it like a chemical. What that means is don't cut back on the rate of application to where it's not effective anymore. You're just spraying water. That's pointless. And then spray in the evening hours and spray the bottom of the leaves, so where the insects are hiding. So that also helps the BT to remain shaded and persist longer. So don't spray top to down when you're spraying. Go bottom to up with your sprayer and deposit your material on the bottom of the leaves where the insects are hiding. That helps these products. And then there are products that have volatile action, like they have garlic or they have peppermint or cinnamon. Again, I am doing research on peppermint-based soap products. They can burn at a high rate, so be careful with the rates you use. Some of them are not even labeled as an insecticide, like Dawn detergent. But because farmers and gardeners have asked me, so I'm doing some work on this. But plant burn can happen. So just a little warning there. And always gardeners are asking me, what are your favorite insecticides? So here are the top 5 that I have listed, which includes BT. This is great for worms, Zentari for armyworms. Pyrethrin, there's Pyganic, which is for producers, but you can also get Pyganic now for gardeners. They're selling small bottles of Pyganic. There's also Spinosad, which is the Monterey product. It's a good product, but you end up spraying almost every 3 days. Don't wait too long with these products. They won't last, so you just need to spray more. Neem with azadirachtin, that's a great product for small insects and for caterpillars. And insecticide soap, one thing to remember is I don't try to mix anything with soap, because soap tends to degrade anything, any chemical, and it's a soap. So it will dissolve things and degrade things. So I usually use soap by itself and then rinse the sprayer out really nicely. So, and then with BT, don't mix fungicides with it because it's a living insecticide. So remember these little things and read the label, please. The label is the law. A lot of these products are from very reputed companies and they have labels. So I also have these recommendations on a slide chart. It's a wheel slide chart that's on here. If you email me, unless we are doing a face-to-face meeting, I bring these to the meetings. But if you are out there and you want a copy of this, email me bugdoctor@auburn.edu and I'll mail them out to you. So no problem at all, along with some other publications. And I have updated the home garden vegetable insect control guide. So please download the new one, discard the old ones. There are a lot of changes in there. All right, I think we're almost at the end. And I think of last few slides as I close, I'm not an ant expert, but because a lot of people will ask me that question, so I'm putting it out in front of you. It gets complicated with fire ants or any of these ants, whether you're a farmer, whether you are home gardener. The best thing I've found out is to control your fire ants in your yard with the common, the baits that are recommended. That controls and prevents them from getting into your gardens. If you have a garden like me, I have a vegetable garden in a corner of my lawn. So when I do a good job of controlling ants in my lawn, they're not usually a problem. The other thing is traffic. Ants, I've seen, it seems like they don't like foot traffic or mechanical traffic. So fire ants are not a big problem in my research plots, where we do a lot of walking, we are scouting constantly, machines are running around there. Ants really like, fire ants really like those undisturbed locations, if you think about it. And then if you want to know, before you do a control, if they get into your vegetables, first try to know what species you got and how active they are. I think there's it's called a potato chip test. Basically, you take, basically the steps are, you first starve yourself, you become hungry, then you go to the gas station or Walmart, get a bag of chips, start munching on them, save a few, bring back the rest, and pour it over of ant hill and see what the ants do. If the ants come, that means they're active and they're hungry. How about that? That's a little joke there, but anyway, that's how you kind of see that. But that's a very common thing I've seen in the publications, and I have a blog on it. But there are some choices. It's very limited choices for insecticides. Basically, you have 3 active ingredients: spinosad that are in that brown or orange color on the slide. Those all have spinosad in them, and then you have 1 product with abamectin and 1 with orange oil. So you are really limited in your control abilities, but these are available, and many of them are not organic. But I would rather use a bait instead of a drench. So the baits are picked up by these ants, and sometimes they're slow, but they do a good job eventually, and they're safe to use around food crops. So again, and some of them actually will also control some insects. For example, the iron phosphate spinosad mixture. I'm sorry, slugs. I think that's the one with labeled with slugs and snails. So, all right, closing. I will just remind you that pest prevention is better than cure. From gardening, farming perspective, with specialty crops, control insects when they're small or low in numbers. Don't wait. Insects are not going to leave. This is Alabama. We are the insect capital of the world. Protect natural enemies. You can also buy and release them under the fabric, as I showed you. And then remember to integrate your efforts and think broadly of why you are having the insect issues. Oftentimes the answer is somewhere else. Like I said, pay attention to your spray equipment, and you are seeing one of the ones that I really like, the Flowmaster battery operated sprayer. It's really good. I really like it. Unfortunately, it does not have a metal nozzle. It's not a brass nozzle, it's a plastic nozzle, and that may wear out, but you can go get a replacement. But it has a long battery life. I've done a lot of spraying, and I keep separate sprayers. Another good point is keep separate your insecticide sprayer from your herbicide sprayer and wash them out after use. Maintain them really well, and that will help a lot of your gardening projects. So think broadly. Again, I talked about some of the resources. We do have the new vegetable handbook. If you download Farming Basics app and you click on the icons on the top, it will take you to the About section of the app. That has a direct link to the handbook. So you can always find the handbook through that app. But I can also mail you these slide charts for organic vegetable farming, and then for urban farms. Just email me. And these are some of the other activities we are doing for producers and gardeners. We have the virtual farm tour. We have a virtual farm tour tomorrow. We are actually highlighting Jones Valley Teaching Farm in downtown Birmingham tomorrow. So don't miss out. Just subscribe to Alabama Extension Commercial Horticulture and take advantage of these webinars. And then we do a Q&A Friday. So the next one is, I think, on April 16th, next Friday, where we answer and interact with producers and gardeners. So it's really a lot of fun on a Friday. Now, if I may, how much time do I have? 4 minutes. Okay, let's do a little fun thing, because I wanted to kind of have a little fun at the end and a little evaluation. So if you are watching from your screen, take your phone. It could be an iPhone or your Samsung, whatever, and point it to that QR code on your screen, please. Oops. Oh, the screen sharing stopped. Okay. Hold on 1 second. I'm going to bring back the screen share. Oops. Okay, there. Is it sharing again?
It is sharing in your
Nursery. Okay. I'll try to go full screen. I'll give you 10 seconds to scan it, and you should arrive at that blue screen. Can you see it, Beck? You see it? Okay. Okay, all right. So stay on that screen. It's going to open up in your browser. So stay on the screen, and I'll show you something fun. So I'm going to stop share here. And I'm going to show you something else. Where is the Zoom again? Share screen and go to my internet. All right, so now you guys are looking at my browser, right? Okay. Now, here's the fun. At this point, your screen should have changed on your browser. And you can now interact with me. So how was your overall learning experience? And you can see those points drop live. And again, this is all anonymous, guys. So there's no marker behind this. So just to have some fun. So, all right, any more responses? I see 30 people online. Anybody else? I hope I don't get into that deep red. Then I'm in trouble. But this is like the, in Atlanta airport, when you use the restroom, when you come out, it asks you, how was my service? So it's like that. But let's go to the next one and have some more fun. All right. Let's look at this one. So how was your level of insect pest management or these techniques knowledge before the training? So before the training, did you know a little bit? Didn't know at all? Did know some things? Okay, awesome. Any other? All right, looks like people have responded. Okay, let's see if this class confused you or it helped you. So here's after the training. What do you think? Okay, awesome. Any other 10 more seconds for any more responses? Okay, thank you. Let's go to the next fun question. Okay, what happened? Okay, do you see this one? Activated, it's not activated. Why is it not activated? Okay, let me go back out. Let's refresh it. See what is going on. Ah, there you go. All right. So would you be using this information in a few days or months? So again, choose your answer and you will see the response live. Okay. Give 15 more seconds for more responses. Okay. All right, it's good to know that there are people who may not use this information right now, but may plan for it. So again, reach out to one of us and we'll be glad to give you more information. So we're always learning. Research, as researchers, we're always learning. So it's not the end of the knowledge here. So it's a constant learning curve. We'll be glad to help with more data. All right, let's go to the next question. All right, this one is, I believe, a free typing question. So you can actually tell us what was the best information you learned today. And you can type and you will see what happens. Okay. You see what it's doing. It's analyzing your words in real time and collecting feedback. So, all right. So it looks like the insect barrier, that row cover information was useful. And I'll take questions. I'm not in a rush to leave. I'll take questions as long as they let me. But okay, yeah. Okay, very good. Oh, I love those caterpillar icons that are popping up. That is so cool. You guys are so cool. All right. I believe this is my last question, and I'm going to activate this just to ask you what other topics or questions you may have. And you can type on this one as well. Let me know if this is this showing? Okay. So if you have other questions, you can type it here for maybe next class.
Few people are putting them in
Chat. Okay. Yep. Correct. And I think at this point, I will let this stay and take questions. So, and try to answer those questions. So go ahead and ask me the questions.
So the first we have,
Self. All right, now everyone should be able to hear me read the question as well as you answer it. First question we have was from Anna. She asked, is pesticide misuse a common problem on commercial farms in Alabama? What programs are in action or planned to address that problem? She moved here from the West Coast, and in her home state, soil and water conservation districts were a key part in efforts like that, but she doesn't know how things are here yet.
That's a very, very good question. And welcome to Alabama. Yes, Alabama being such a hot and humid environment here, our insect pressures are incredible. Even our organic program are different than California, North US. If you go to New York, Ohio, where you see a large acres, we have a very different approach. And oftentimes they lead to use of insecticides. But what we do is by providing farmers constant training. We provide a number of training opportunities for farmers, and also through the Department of Agriculture. We work very closely with the Agriculture Department of Ag and Industries, the Commissioner's Office, with the pesticide inspectors. We try to educate farmers constantly. That's our goal, because products are being tested. So, the federal laws, they have federal laws that test products when they're sold. So there are a lot of measures that we've taken, and then publications. We are constantly communicating with farmers. And I think education is the most important part of this. And of course, we have regulations, just like other states, we have similar laws here. So just be assured that you are eating safe produce. Don't worry about it. We are in the back, and these are being tested by the department. So the State Department does an excellent job. But yeah, I think if I tell you the truth, I think there's more pesticide. If gardeners are using pesticides, they're very likely they are not reading labels, and there are violations happening in the backyard more than the farm, to tell you the truth. I think we have more chemicals in our home than some of the farmers that we buy our produce from. You'll be surprised how many chemicals. So, that's kind of harsh reality, but that is what it is. We are always exposed to chemicals. So, but farmers, I think, do a great job because they want to be in business and they care about you.
Great, thanks for that one. So Susan has asked Dr. A, how do the plants get pollinated under a fabric tunnel?
That's a very good question, and I'm expecting it. Remember what I told you, when you're using pest exclusion system like the ones I showed you with Superlight insect barrier, I'm only using it early in the season to protect those transplants. So there is no question or no need of pollinators at that point. We have grown squash in these low tunnels, but then what we do is we take those off when the bloom starts, so the bees can do the action. I have also seen farmers that will open up one side of that fabric so the bees can do their work, and they will cover it back up at night to prevent those moths from going in. So again, I think you just have to be creative, but I take these fabric off, the temporary system, take it off when I don't need it, and let the bees do their work, let the beneficial insects do their work. So that's the beauty of it. It's the early season protection is awesome.
All right, the one last question that's come in, Lenora has asked, have you tried Murphy's oil soap? She got a promotional packet from them that recommended a rate of 1 tablespoon per quart of water, a 1/4 cup per gallon.
For
Murphy's oil soap for insecticide.
Oh, I haven't. I tend to stay with the ones that have like the insecticide soap. I have to look into that one. But I have not tried the other product. You'll have to read closely, see what is the salt in there and how much rate you can apply. And that's the challenging part is if you increase the rates too much, some of these products, they're sold, but they can do plant burn. So just be careful. There's no way I can test everything. So this is another one of those products that I didn't know of. Thank you for that question, though.
Great. Thanks, Lenore. Thanks, Dr. A. Those are all the questions that we had then. So, and you, the question I was going to ask was about ants. So you nipped that one in the bud before I had the chance.
And you have the PowerPoint. So if the participants reach out, you can email them.
Great.
PowerPoint and those. And I also prepared a list of blog articles that can also be sent out.
And we'll be sharing those with you folks when we send you your survey that we hope you will complete for us as well. It's a very quick survey that just helps us keep funding free programs like our Lunch and Learn. So we'll send you an email later on with those with the link to the survey and then with those documents that Dr. A is going to share with you. And would appreciate it if you could complete that survey for us. Dr. A, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
No, just thank you, Brooke and Tyler and Hannah for organizing this and letting me, present. I think this is a lot of fun and good luck to everybody, gardening and farming that are out there.
Great. Thank you, Dr. A. Thanks for joining us today. Thank you all for joining us. We hope that you will check out our other upcoming Lunch and Learns at our website at bbgardens.org/classes. You can register for those the same as you did for these. They'll be going up through the fall this year. And of course, we want to thank our partners that help make this happen: Alabama Extension, Alabama Green Industry, Jefferson County's Department of Stormwaters and Department of Health, the City of Leeds, the City of Birmingham Stormwater Management, and Stormwater Management Authority. Thank you all. With that, we're going to end today's program.